Welcome to Wednesday Q&A, where you all ask the questions and we answer with curiosity and joy, enthusiasm, and just a lot of love for all of you. I am joined, as always, by my lovely, gorgeous, amazing co-host, Kristen Williams.
Hey, Lara. Hey, everybody. So glad to be here. Let's get this show on the road.
Let's get it on the road. So our wonderful lit professor, Marcy, wrote in a while back. You posted on Mark's carrying angle. What is that and when to be concerned? So I'll speak to what I was talking about. So this was a video I showed. Mark was having some shoulder issues, and with this might happen in men as well. So carrying angle is the angle of when your arm is hanging by your side, the angle from the humerus, from the elbow to the wrist. It's kind of an angle that for women is wider because so it has more like instead of a straight down, it has a little bit maybe of a kind of not an L, but it widens because we have wider hips. So the purpose of it is we can swing our arms without hitting our hips or legs. And so women have typically a little bit wider carrying angle. Now, a lot of people will talk about worrying about the carrying angle, and truthfully, in terms of like hyperextension and purposely bending the elbows, I don't see a lot of true excessive carrying angle. I don't know. Do you know what that angle is? Is it like 20 degrees or more?
Oh, yeah. I don't even know what the number is.
Yeah, it's beyond 20 degrees, I believe. So, but with Mark, when his arms were hanging down by his sides, which happens with a lot of people and maybe more men than women, chest wall is shortened, so his humerus rolls in, and so his forearm rolls in. So if I was just in a resting position, the anatomical position, my palms should either be facing into my body or forward. Forward is really like anatomical, but inward is fine as well. When a person's palm is facing backward, meaning so that is going to, the hand is just following the direction of the shoulder. And so with that, to clear the arms, or who knows why, he's created a little bit of a bend, all right? Because now his arms are flipped inward, and so he has to bring the elbow outward. And with that is a lot of fascial restriction. So he looks, I don't want to say like a caveman, that would be terrible, but like he's a little rounded and then tight in the chest wall, and then the elbows are bending out as the palms go back. You can see this on our YouTube channel. So for him, just kind of opening up the pec minor isn't going to be enough because he's got fascial pull down into his upper arm, into the forearm. And that is where, looking at his carrying angle, if he's just laying down, most people would be able to lay down, and his do like have a bend to him. So we have to address that fascial pull that is increasing the carrying angle for him in a different way. So that is what I was addressing. So I said we were working on his chest wall, opening up pec minor, getting his scapula out of that downwardly rotated position, getting him more neutral. But we also have to address that fascia here, because everything we would do here is kind of undone by the pulling from the arm. So that it is important when we look at somebody standing, if their hands are flipped backwards, we want to know, like, well, why are they flipped backwards? Is it because chest wall tightness, shoulder, neck, forearm? You got to look at the whole, remember, everything's connected. So that is, if somebody is just naturally standing with their palms facing back, look into that, because that's not where we want that to be. We want either palms facing in or palms facing forward. Palms facing in is kind of when you say, hey, stand for me so I can look. That's typically what people are going to do. But again, the anatomical is the palms facing forward. So that's what the carrying angle for him is significant, and it could be for others as well. You want to add anything on to the carrying angle?
Well, I just am going to echo you. This is actually quite popular in bodybuilders, muscly guys. You see that I'm just going to stand up. So YouTube, you can see they stand like this. And part of it's just their lats are so big, their biceps are so big, their chest is tight from all the chest press. The biceps are tight from all the bicep curling. There's so much of
It's
this.
almost like they get a soft tissue contracture. That
They
doesn't mean
absolutely
right?
do.
Because you try, like when I tried to stretch Mark out, it was really hard. It's
And
almost
yeah,
like there's a contracture formed
you
in the
see this in
fascia.
women, in bodybuilders. When we're building muscle mass, we build it through repetitive concentric, contraction. And that, to your point, Lara, it's the connective tissue. Like, I bet you went to go straighten his arm and it was like, I have seen people who cannot straighten their elbow because they are so muscle bound. And that's just not ideal. And that is, to your point, you're looking at the shoulder. It's the scapula, it's the shoulder, it's the humerus, it's the elbow. It really does matriculate all the way down. And versus the traditional carrying angle that we see with women, like you're talking about, where there are, this is what it is. If I'm standing up, you can see that my arm goes out, and that's to clear my hip when I walk. And so that's normal for that, our body. It's part of what makes us bipedal. And we'll see some people have a larger one, and then they go into a down dog and they look really, and there's this big, oh, you shouldn't, like that's the thing. And no matter what, in your practice, your yoga practice, your any type of weight-bearing functional movement practice, you don't want to lock out anywhere. So if somebody has a carrying angle and then they're locking out on top of it, softening that elbow to make it straight and strong is best case scenario, because it is going to transfer that energy right up into the scapula. We can really just use our body more effectively because we're recruiting more muscle control versus passive ligamentous. So I think, the Mark's carrying angle was like a postural, like functional, meaning it came on, versus a lot of women will have more of a, you're born with it. This, I don't know why my brain is completely losing all of these
terms, right? Yeah.
But, structural versus postural.
Yes. And again, when the important thing is when people see it and their response is just soften the elbow, that is not exactly what you want. Of course, you want it to go to the place where it's straight. So for the person who's going beyond their then you need to tell them how to hold it straight, which is really going to be more proximal. So it's often that connection, especially if they've kind of locked into it, they've also disengaged from the scapula. So it isn't enough to just say, oh my gosh, microbend your elbow because that looks horrible. It's more like, well, why, how can we get the proximal muscles around the humerus, around the scapula to stabilize more, so there that energy flow through a straight arm is going to happen. And so a lot of it is a habit. You're just going into your available end range. Your end range is maybe a little bit more because of that carrying angle. That doesn't mean that person should be horrified by it. They just need to be even, because they often go hand in hand. The people that I've seen where it is an issue have just disconnected, not good motor control in the scapula humeral area. And so when that improves, the elbow might still look beyond, but it's gotten a lot more of that intrinsic control from the proximal muscles.
Yep.
Okay, so Charlie B. Barking, we know Kate, she asked, how often do ligaments calcify? You want to start with that? How often?
Yeah, well, I think there's two main ways that this will happen. Immobility. So let's say as people move less, it's like saran wrap just starts to kind of shrink in, and that would be with age. Calcification is a harsh reality of aging, and especially in response to the demand placed upon it. So as we age, we talked about this last week, we tend to do less, we tend to sit more, and we stop putting the demands on the ligaments, on the tendons, and so they just start to shrivel up, I think kind of calcify, because it's trying to stabilize when there's no movement, if that kind of makes sense. Then there's the other end of the spectrum for people who have sprained a ligament, people who are hypermobile, who have repetitive chronic straining. I think those people, the calcification will start earlier. Anytime you sprain a ligament, the body is going to lay down connective tissue to try to heal that. And that's a good thing. We want that. We want stability. Because once you stretch a ligament in particular, it doesn't have the blood flow that a tendon has. A tendon has a nice, healthy blood flow, much more able to heal and lie down new, healthier connective tissue. But your ligaments, it's like a rubber band that gets stretched too much, and it becomes more brittle and can become more calcified, particularly at certain stress points within it. So it depends is the answer, I think. It depends on what you're doing. If you are continuing to move well, your ligaments are going to they're not going to calcify as readily. And I'm talking late into life. If you don't move well, and that's not just the ligaments, you have to have the muscles strong around it too. So you have to be able to move, but also be controlled with that proximal strength so you're not going into the ligaments. So just moving isn't enough. That's why I kind of said moving well.
Yeah, like if you're hypermobile, which we know Kate is, then you have to pay attention to that proximal stability.
Yeah.
And people ask me this all the time. If I'm hypermobile, what are some suggestions? Well, one is don't move into your in range, because your in range is like a little bit faulty wiring. It's not bad. It's just that you're not getting that feedback. So you're going to have to create it. So you're really working on stability and not going into the biggest range of motion available to you, because that's going to be the range that's normal, in the normal range for most people. And if you're hypermobile and you go repetitively into that ligament and it is getting stretched, but you're not getting any feedback that it's getting stretched, because it's just getting stretched until there's like chronic pain or chronic tightness. A lot of people with hypermobility will say like, but I feel so tight, like I need to stretch. Well, that's your response, your nervous system's response to going too much into these ligaments. Is like it's trying to like tense things so you need to do the tensing so that your nervous system doesn't. And then you'll keep it more healthy for sure. We don't want calcified ligaments. That made me think of that rubber band that's been sitting there for 20 years, and you pick it up and you go like that, and like it just breaks. It's like
powder.
It's like crusty. Yeah, we don't want that.
No.
All right. So we have a longish question here. This is from Tina, and it's how to kindly respond to the objection of a student who persistently complains that the class is difficult, even though it's described as the most advanced class in the yoga center. The student refuses the proposal to attend less challenging classes because it's too difficult for her. The student breathes hard and loud in class, but still always chooses the most challenging transitions and positions. With her dissatisfaction to fulfill some of her expectations that she couldn't achieve, she spreads negative energy that others notice and even bothers them. Oh, my goodness. Okay. So I would be grateful if you could cover this topic in one of your podcasts. All right, Tina, this is, fortunately, and in the decades of teaching and thousands of people, I have very rarely seen this, but I've heard of such a student. And so I can only respond to what I can surmise might be happening. And then it's challenging. She's paying a class to be there, right? So it's like she's a customer, a consumer, a client, along with the other people in there. So you do have to kind of take care of everybody without making her feel excluded. And also, I think the bigger thing is she's obviously feeling not great about herself, because she wants something that she's not yet able to really emulate and functionally do and is struggling with it. And that's setting up a very negative feedback loop. And so I like that you tried by saying, here are some other classes, but for that suggestion, as heartwarming as it is and probably came, is probably interpreted by her as being insulting. It's unfortunate. It's just like this type of mindset, any change or suggestion of changing, even it's for her benefit, is often insulting. So it's like a very tough place. What I would suggest is give her space and give her a lot of positive feedback. Even if she's struggling tremendously and it's obvious and she's breathing hard, because this to me is a person who really needs some tenderness and some positive feedback. That's probably why she's coming, is just wanting to be kind of in that realm and around people who are in maybe her perception are, able to do this advanced class. There's something that's bringing her back, and it could be you, it could be the class, it could be the people in the class, it could be her aspirations.
Could be the time of day. It could be the
I was going to say, the final thing could be because it works in her schedule.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason, you're not going to gain any headway by combating it. So I would really just love her up in whatever way that feels real for you. I've had my share of challenging clients, and I'm going to let KB talk as well. And what I've found almost across the board is when I paid more attention in a loving way with a lot of positive feedback, it made a huge difference.
I echo you 100%. That's what I was going to say. The positive feedback. And I also wouldn't assume, unless people have told you, wow, she's saying bad things, I wouldn't assume that people are picking up on negativity, because I think that's, we can tend to, like when someone leaves my class, my initial reaction is like, what did I do? We assume something, the worst usually. And then it's like, wait a minute, they probably just had to go make a phone call or, and it's probably not you. I mean, she keeps coming, which says something. It's either fitting into her schedule. She likes the challenge. She's breathing heavy. Give her props when she maybe doesn't struggle as much. Give her props at the end for, wow, great job. Not that you need to be overdoing with it, but, come over if this is something you feel comfortable with. When you're in, say, a warrior variation, come and just massage her upper trap. Give her a little love, like a little hands-on. She's in a down dog. Come massage her, not from behind, but like from in front. You can come just like massage her low back a little bit. Press your hands on her hands, just saying, hey, I see you and I see the effort you're making, and then walk away. You don't even have to say anything. I think the power of a little touch, we went over this. We were in Costa Rica on one of our retreats, and we did a continuing education course about hands-on adjustments. And one of our topics was like, just the feel-good adjustments, letting people know, hey, I see you. Hey, good job. It might just be there in a warrior two. You lay your hands on their shoulders. Give them a little squeeze, and then walk on. I think those little notions of congratulations, also what's coming out of your mouth, great job, way to go a long way. Could be a testament to you that she keeps coming back, that she is trying. And yeah, it might be distracting to people around her. They need to get over that, like, it is a public class. This person is showing up. They're doing the work. If it's bottom, they can move their mat to somewhere else, So that's the other thing, not being so responsible for how other people are feeling. And it's easier said than done. And you may have already tried all of this and it hasn't worked. But I echo what you say also, is the suggesting of the easier classes can be perceived as an insult, even though it comes from a place of warmth. Now, I would say if you've been watching her, it sounds like she's been coming for a while, and gosh, she really struggles with side plank. Before class, you'd be like, hey, why don't you try a modified side plank? We're going to be doing side plank. Real quiet. We're going to be doing side plank in the second sequence. Why don't you try a modified side plank? I'm going to come and help you. And I think you're going to feel better in that. And then she might be like, no, thank you. Or, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And then you come over, you real quick, and then you move on.
And by the way, modified side plank is as hard in many ways because it's directly going into the scapula. So also languaging things that, and you might already be doing this, but we really work on this a lot in LYT as languaging something is not better or more than, but these are different opportunities, different options, different ways that it's expressed. And modified side plank, it's what we call it because our knee is down, but it isn't modified and making it easier. It's making it sturdier, but it's making kind of the contact or the direct feedback into the scapular muscles, I think, even clearer.
Yeah. So really observe her, where she's struggling, and what little tips can you maybe give her right before class? Or, hey, I'm going to come over and help you in half moon. I remember last week you felt, you seemed a little, and then, oh my God, she's noticing me. She's paying attention. So I really think she's showing up because she wants to get better.
Yeah. All right, we got a final question here. It came in. Sarah asked, she's like, I've practiced other forms of yoga for many years with specific pranayama, but I find for the first time that my breath is bigger, I feel lighter, and I'm more connected. Why is that when I've been practicing, quote, pranayama for many years? So what she was saying was like, this is amazing. I've been doing LYT for a short amount of time where I was practicing kind of more traditional yoga where they would sit and do pranayama breathing practices, but her breathing is fuller, lighter, clearer, and everything. And my quick answer to that, and this is what I wrote her back, is that we work the breath core integration, which it truly is. Like your breathing enhances your core stability and connection, and your core stability and connection enhances your breathing. And when you kind of not cherry pick, but when you practice them without focusing on both parts, it's not as impactful. And I don't think it's as functional, meaning it's not going to kind of wire in your system. So you really understand, like, oh, when I'm doing a big breath, I let my ribs move outward and into the back body, which we focus on a lot. And we have to have a really nice, I might also say, hey, is your posture improving? Because that's going to improve your breath capacity. And so we do all of the pillars of that in every LYT class. And many people will say that to me, like, my breathing is so much more efficient than when I just sit and do these pranayama practices. I'm not at all saying that they don't have benefits. We don't practice them kind of independently or on their own, because with everything we do, our intention is to bring it into life and make it I always say more bang for your buck, but what I'm really saying is make it so it's comprehensive for the movement requirements. Your breath ramps up, your core activation ramps up, and you move cleaner and fresher and you're breathing better. And then that also carries over into your life. So you're managing stress better, you're holding your posture with less effort. So it's all of those things we practice here is really to do it in life.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have an absolute case study of this being shown medically, where one of my clients who I'd worked with doing LYT yoga with her, I wish I actually wrote down our start date, but it's at least probably 5 years that she has done LYT yoga with me 3 days a week. And I don't focus on the breath with her. I don't cue the breath that much because she has a lung disease. She has something called bronchiectasis, and where it's basically the deep bronchioles of the lower lobes are dysfunctional from actually SARS. She got SARS in the 90s. Very similar virus to coronavirus that we're dealing with right now, COVID, and it adversely affected her lungs to where she kind of coughs a lot, or she used to. She doesn't anymore, but she used to cough. It sounded like she had bronchitis all the time. She was very self-conscious about that. She would try not to cough, and her posture was poor as a result. So we started doing LYT yoga actually for she had something going on somewhere else. It's like, you know what, let's do this. And then I naturally was adding all of the chest opening, the breath work, by way of moving into the ribs, creating space in her ribs, creating space in her low back, opening up her chest, her shoulders. And she would cough and be like, I'm so sorry. No, you let that out. Cough. This is so good that you're coughing. And so I encouraged her to cough. I encouraged her to move. I gave her stuff to do on her own to open up posturally her chest wall, her neck. She had, neck issues. No wonder, because she was like this all the time, kind of crouching forward. And we've been doing this for two years. She went back for her regular checkup with her pulmonologist. He does his regular x-ray, and he said, what are you doing? What do you mean? He's like, you had improved, they could see it on x-ray. She had less scar tissue around her lung. She's like,
amazing.
I have chills. I have chills.
I have chills too. Ah.
The only thing we changed is LYT yoga, and she is so, it is amazing. She doesn't cough as much. She obviously breathes better. She still has the underlying disease and the things that go with it. But you ask, what are we doing? It is posture. It's posture. It's strength. She is stronger than she's ever been. She's a dancer, ballroom dance, and her dance instructor is like, what are you doing? Same thing. I'm doing LYT yoga. You're so strong. You have so much more extension in your body because of what we're doing on the mat. So to your point, Lara, what we're doing on the mat goes off the mat, whereas a breathing exercise really doesn't, because it's not functional. It's not adding in that functional movement component.
Yeah. And when I started teaching, we were teaching 90-minute classes 27 years ago. And even then, I liked the idea of incorporating core with breathing. I just find it more effective, because when you tell somebody to sit and start breathing, a lot of times there's a lot of self-consciousness with it. Now, breathing for forms of stress relief and stuff like that, we have that in some of our stress relief classes where you can calm the nervous system that way. But in terms of in a movement practice, we need to put it in there in a functional way. Now, we don't even, 90 minutes, nobody does that anymore. I'm like, wow, we're lucky if people do 30 minutes. So we better get it moving, get it functional, get the postural training, strength, flexibility, breath, all of it. And it all works in conjunction, to your point. So I think there's your answer, Sarah. And so if you haven't tried LYT, everybody that's listening, get on it. We've got a 2 weeks. That's a long time. Free trial. We have, so many hundreds, over 500 classes that are on the site and the library. We have many more in the vault. But there's really something for everyone. We have many more. We've listened. Many more people coming and wanting shorter classes. We have shorter classes. We have classes with weights. We have classes for stress relief. We have classes for specific body parts, and etc. But it's all in the same blueprint. So you're going to continue to improve your habitual wiring for your posture, for your movement, for your breathing. So give it a go.
And it's not your traditional yoga. So be prepared to move.
Yeah.
Prepared to move and learn how to move well. It's an education as much as a movement practice. And you can always send us your questions. You can write into support@lytyoga.com. We are happy to answer anything about maybe you have a concern about your loved one. Give us a shout, and we will do our best to answer. You can also reach us
on Instagram. You can direct message right at Redefining Yoga Podcast. Make sure you follow that as well. So Redefining Yoga Podcast, that's the handle. You can write me and direct message Lara.Hyman or KBWilliams99. Send us your questions. We love them all. We accept them all. And we love you. So rate, review, and, share this with a friend and subscribe and check out our lit classes and all the things. You're never too old. You're never too anything to move better and feel better. And you deserve it. And know,
Yeah.
as always, we're pulling for you.
You know,